Hey there, food fans. Welcome back to the Food for Thoughtcast with me, your host, Melissa Reagan, and my co-host with the most, Chef Steven Gonzalez. What's up, Steve?
Hey, what's going on? You all
Oh,
right?
I'm super excited because today we're joined by Carolyn Haeler from Mighty Licious Gluten-Free Cookies. What's up,
Yeah.
Carolyn?
Hey guys, so glad to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So, Steve, I'm doing great. Are you doing great?
Fantastic. I'm smiling ear to ear because of our guest. I'm excited.
Yeah. And Carolyn, how's your day going so far?
Oh, it's going. It's been a week. It's
Agreed.
school holiday here in New York City. We had a water main pipe burst this weekend, so we're getting
Oh,
along.
wow.
Getting along.
No.
And it's only Monday.
Yeah, it's only Monday.
It's only Monday.
Yeah.
And I can safely say that all three of us, even in different sectors, are all part of the hospitality and food business, right? In one way or the other. And this Valentine's Day into President's Day weekend was like a big 1-2 punch. Like it's really
yeah. Valentine's Day is especially if you're part of the gifting business, which cookies
Mhm.
definitely are gifting. It's a big it's a big push.
It's been an absolutely wild weekend. I can't even imagine. Well, for those of you who don't know, there was quite a bit of back and forth for us to get Carolyn to join us today. With no fault of her own, Steve and I's crazy schedules. But we just wanted to say thank you so much for being patient, and I'm glad we could finally make it work. But yeah, we start every show with the question, what is the most amazing thing you ate this week? So Steve, why don't you start us off?
Well, as you know, I went on vacation a couple weeks ago, but it wasn't really vacation. It was seeing like family and stuff down in South Texas. And we got ourselves a deer for some meat. And so, of course, we did some marinated backstrap, some coffee, whiskey, some chili, some honey, all that good stuff. So we just marinated, grilled it, and had some deer tacos, simple and delicious.
That sounds incredible. Carolyn, what about you?
Yeah, I've been traveling a lot. It's sort of it's what's it called? What are they called? We are a food show season. So I just got back from one of our distributors' food shows. And of course, you get to sample a whole bunch of really amazing things when you're there because you're hungry and you're talking a lot. And there is a booth that I'm familiar with. Their product is called Pop Daddy. They make these really gourmet, sort of more masculine popcorns, but they're all delicious. And they just released, because I'm gluten-free, obviously. They also do pretzels, and they just released a gluten-free pretzel. And they're like, you want to try our tomato basil pretzel? And I was like,
Ooh.
okay, fine. What? And I love pretzels, but I was like, tomato basil pretzel, oh my God. I ate the whole bag. To like my mouth went. It was amazing. And it's not out yet, but they are releasing it. So if you're into gluten-free pretzels and you like sort of more gourmet flavors, it's called Pop Daddy. And they have popcorns, they have pretzels, they have sweet, they have savory. They're fantastic.
I am a massive fan of popcorn, sometimes as a meal. And I can tell you that pretzels are a really hard thing to get right gluten-free, as I'm sure you know, because it's like a cardboard brick. And the more you chew it, the worse it gets. Like it's just it's a really tough thing to try to make a quality alternative of without the gluten, right?
Yeah, so they have it. If you like cheese popcorn, I love cheddar cheese popcorn. They do smoked Gouda popcorn. That's like
I love it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you got
I love it.
So many great flavors. If you haven't heard of them, look them up. They're worth it.
Incredible. Well, I'd have to say the most amazing thing I ate this week was a sushi roll from a little place here in town called Siam Sushi. So, Carolyn, in case you don't know, I live in Wake Forest, North Carolina, and Steven resides in Midland, Texas. And in the tiny town of Wake Forest, North Carolina, you might have imagined that sushi does not corner the market. And so this place is doing a really nice job with really fresh ingredients, and they have a great BOGO deal on sushi rolls. And I had one this week that was wrapped in soy paper instead of the traditional rice and seaweed. And sometimes I seek that out because I am a newly type 2 diabetic. So sometimes I try to limit white carbs. And it was really delicious. It kind of had a Hawaiian flair. It had some really spicy mayo, super spicy tuna and crab, and a little pineapple. And it was to die for.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. And Carolyn, tell us where you are again. Sorry.
I am in the heart. I'm in the center of the universe. I'm in the Upper East Side of Manhattan.
Okay. Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it.
So
I've been to Manhattan one time and I loved it. So
I understand that you all are going through a heat wave right now. It's probably 20 degrees over there?
It is. It snows and then it rains and then it snows and then it
Oh my
rains,
goodness.
which is so much fun when you're in a pedestrian city. Snow and rain is the best.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wanted to live in New York for a lot of my professional life. And when I first became a chef, I was like, oh, if I can make it, it'll mean, if I can make it to New York, it'll mean I've made it. And after having visited there in my 30s, I'm like, yeah, no, I like it on somebody else's dime and not having to deal with the weather, but like otherwise, no.
Yeah, agreed. I've
Yeah,
been
I
out there once and it was very nice, but I've discovered it, I'm more country than anything else. So, being in a big city like that, it's overwhelming for me.
It is. I'm from New York originally. I grew up in Westchester, so I'm from the country, and sort of the bucolic peacefulness of nature. But I
Yeah.
love Manhattan, always have. But it took me, even being very familiar with New York and visiting here and spending a lot of time here, takes you about a month to acclimate to the city and the speed and the stimulus and everything coming at you. It's not an easy thing to absorb.
Yeah, I spent 3 weeks there for training for my job, and I really never did sleep. There was so much to do, but it was really fun, but like also in an overstimulating way. I was
No,
like,
you are
it's like
walking around is overstimulating.
yeah, it's like 2 a.m. and I can get a chopped cheese and a green juice.
Yeah.
Never mind that I just had fish
And all
chips.
the lights are on, and
like
in a lot of places in the city, there's like, the streets are bustling. Like, it's not everywhere in Manhattan. Manhattan definitely does sleep.
never.
If you don't want to sleep, you certainly can make that happen.
Right. During the time that I was there, it was St. Patrick's Day. So it was like my first
Oh.
St. Patrick's Day in New York. And I went to this place that I'm going to mess it up. It's somewhere, I can't remember what it's called. It was a bar called Slancha. And I think it was in some area that I can't remember the name of. But yeah, over there on the other side of Little Italy and Chinatown-ish, right? And so Tribeca. Tribeca. That's the word. Yep. And it was incredible. I mean, like, what a mind-blowing experience, but I don't know if I could live that life every day. So kudos.
Yeah. So what tourists often come for holidays, and what they don't realize is that real New Yorkers, we don't leave on St. Patrick's Day. I won't even cross the street. No, absolutely not. If there's a parade, nope. Times Square, I will walk 2 miles around it to avoid it.
I love it.
We don't do those things. If you're from Manhattan, you avoid those things at all costs.
Yeah. Well, and that's, people from other states. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. And so we always get like, do you ride horses everywhere? It seems like an outplayed stereotype, but some people really still think that it's like the wild, wild, untamed West. And I'm like, no, it's very suburban. There's concrete buildings everywhere. We don't have a taxi cab that's worth a crap, but we don't also have horses. Like, not everybody has horses. So
yeah, I've been to Dallas. I'm familiar. It's a metropolitan place.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the same sidewalks we have here in Manhattan. Manhattan is truly a pedestrian city, which you don't find in New York, in America, too often.
Yeah, absolutely.
San Francisco, and there's New York and
Boston
a little bit, but not really. I've not been to Boston. Yeah.
Yeah. It's built for walking, but like a lot of parts of America are not.
No.
I can reflect, like I can say that about my own neighborhood today. A lot of the streets only have sidewalk on one side. So yeah. Yep. Well, Carolyn, we are so glad you're here today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the cookie business.
Yeah, no, I'm not a chef like you guys. It's not something that I was.
But you are.
I am the executive baker of Mighty Delicious. I certainly have become quite that expert in the past sort of 7 years. I was diagnosed with celiac disease in 2012 when I was 31 years old, and that changed my life profoundly in a lot of ways that I didn't anticipate. And I'm sure you're going through that now with learning all the things for type 2 diabetes. There's a lot of things you don't consider. And I've been eating a gluten-full life up until that point, and I do love food, and I love culture, and I love traveling, and I love grocery stores. Like, I just love food. Like, it doesn't have to be a high-end food. I just like to see like the types of yogurt that are in Japan.
Yeah.
Right? What kind of yogurt do we eat in Italy? That sort of stuff really makes me excited. So being diagnosed with celiac disease is profound because gluten is in everything. It is a color, it is a preservative, and it is a filler. So I can't drink Coca-Cola, which makes sense. It's brown, has caramel color. I also can't drink ginger ale, also has
Right.
caramel color.
Right.
I can't eat a lot of spices because they are laced with gluten as a filler, even if it's less than 1%. I can't tolerate that. I purchased some cinnamon from Kirkland. It was putting it on my coffee in the morning on my cappuccino, and it's reacting to that. That's how sensitive I
No,
am to
wow.
gluten. And even things like cold cuts are that you would imagine would be gluten-free are not, because it can be used as a preservative. Companies are better now that gluten-free is becoming more mainstream about using things like saline water as a preservative, but gluten can be hiding in almost everything that is processed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, it's almost a blessing and a curse, right? So when you talk about the things that gluten hides in, breakfast sausage is one, a huge one.
Mhm.
And, Steve and I have talked about before how we preserved food, as a society, like as human beings, like how this kind of jerky and other things came around, and it was like salt, and then it was ice, and then it was saltpeter, and then it was nitrates and nitrites and all these things, right? And so as far as we've come as a society, there's also a lot of like meaningless steps that we take that now makes things that like yourself, like you and other people with celiac that can't eat.
In pursuit of profit margin. A lot of these things, because once you get purchased by a huge conglomerate, they're saving fractions of pennies. And the only reason to put gluten into cinnamon is to save fractions of pennies, but they're so large at this point that they are able to sort of look at their bottom line and figure out, how do I maximize my margins? And a lot of it comes down to that, to be honest.
Well, even if you're like increasing shelf life on something, right? It's like this kind of rate of diminishing returns, right? Like, well, I've increased the shelf life, but at what cost that I've passed on to the consumer. But also the market doesn't make it friendly for people to do things in small batches that don't require like a massive, shelf life, right? So it's kind of like
there is a mandatory shelf life because the distribution chain is so long. That when I started, I was saying a 3-month shelf life. Cookies are shelf stable. They just, they're not as fresh. They're not going to taste as good.
Sure.
But now, I mean, I have to be giving a 9-month shelf life because that's how long the distribution. And frankly, even at 9 months, like, it's really for me only 3 months. By the time it like gets to that customer, it's only about a 3-month shelf life. And so I have had to make a lot of adjustments, though all natural adjustments, like including grape juice in our formula to extend that shelf life. But yes, it is very much in pursuit of shelf life, and also the demands of the customer. Customers want food that looks good, that smells good. You eat with your eyes, and a lot of the caramel in foods is just about making it appealing to the customer.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how the quality has just increased over like the last decade, the last 5 years. It's grown leaps and bounds. Like, I can remember 10 years ago, you get stuff that's gluten-free, and I would try it just to see what it would taste like. And it was very chalky. And now it's like, wow, this is gluten-free. Like, this is amazing. Did
you guys get samples of my cookies?
They're not here yet, so the way this connection happened so quickly, and Vicky was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't think I can get the cookies there on time," and I was like, "I tell you what, we will taste them on a separate episode. We'll pop that puppy up on YouTube. We'll do all the we'll do it all again. We'll get all the shout out.
Yeah, I mean that leads me back to, so I'm living this life, this glutenful life. I get diagnosed with celiac disease. It has a profound impact on my life. It changes my life dramatically. Like, my immune system was failing at that point. So like my hair is falling out, my skin had turned gray. It wasn't a small thing for me.
Sure.
And so I start, healing my body by eating the foods that I can eat. And I start to realize that a lot of the products, and this was almost a decade ago now, or was over a decade ago now, a lot of the products out there on the market are few and far between. And almost all of them, I can say confidently, were made by a parent for a child. So someone's parent has a child with a food allergy, and they're like deathly allergic to everything. So they created this product for the child. The needs of a child are very different from my needs at 31, and I was working in banking in New York City.
Right.
Also, my experiences with food are very different from that of a child. A child doesn't know what a cookie should taste like. I've eaten cookies in Paris and croissants, and I've had, pasta in Italy, and I've traveled. And I've tasted everything from the people who created it and how it was meant to be. So when you're giving me something that was not intended for me or not created for me, I notice it. And I think that there is a lot of sympathy in these products. but there isn't a lot of empathy. And it's very hard to imagine what it's like to be gluten-free until you're going through it. I can't have a beer. I can't have a Coca-Cola. I can't have cinnamon on my coffee. I can't grab a bagel. I can't grab a muffin. I get up at 5 a.m. I'm going to work. I can eat a banana. I can have a yogurt. I can have a salad. And there's so many ways of foods that aren't gluten-free will be cross-contaminated. So this is now like, I don't want to say this to be dramatic because I'm not disabled, but it starts to become disabling when you are so limited in what you're able to eat. And when you do get cross-contamination or eat something, you are injured by it. That's disabling. And that is a huge impact on someone who is very active and very
Yeah.
so
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I just decided had been living with celiac disease for 5 years, and I was shopping one day in Manhattan. It was like Christmas time, and I'd been shopping all day. I hadn't eaten all day. I realized it's 3:00. I'm hungry, and I see this gluten-free package of gluten-free cookies on the shelf. I grab it, and I start eating it, and they were so, to your point, about chalky and gritty and unappealing that I literally was like, "What?" I spit it out, and I was like, "Oh no!" I opened it. Now I have to buy it.
I
And
mean, do you though?
yeah, that was the moment. I had gone to business school and had gone to business school where one of the founders was a professor of honest tea and had learned all about the honest tea story and how they walked into a Whole Foods. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make gluten-free cookies. And so I left my job in finance and spent months sort of developing recipes in my studio apartment in New York City, and realized very quickly that there really is the chemistry for baking gluten-free does not really exist.
Yeah.
It's completely different from traditional baking. There's
and what a
say 1-for-1. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a 1-for-1.
what a terrifying leap for you to make. I applaud that. Man, that's that right now is just like
I am a risk-oriented person.
Absolutely. I mean, and part of that brokerage, right, is like you are evaluating risk for a living on behalf of other folks, right? And I mean, I think that's it's all altogether different when it's you though, right?
It is. But when you're a stockbroker, if you don't sell stocks, you don't make money either. So
absolutely,
your income is volatile, and there's a lot of just risk involved in that type of very entrepreneurial business. So I just started making recipes. It took me about 3 months until I found a recipe that I was like, this is it. It's delicious. I can make it over and over again. I've perfected it. And so I took some cookies and I put them in a tin. I bought a coffee bag off of Amazon. Put it in a tin tie coffee bag. I put my label on front. I designed it in like PowerPoint, put it on front, walked into the Whole Foods on 86th Street. And was just looking for feedback because that's what they teach you, like create a prototype, get feedback, prototype, feedback, perfect. And I walked into the information booth and they were like, go to talk to Chris. He's behind the bakery, behind the cake counter. He's the team leader. I don't even know what that means. So I'm like, okay, hey, is Chris here? And he's behind the cakes. And he's like, taste my cookie because this is the best gluten-free cookie I've ever tasted. Go down to Union Square and go to Brooklyn. We sell more gluten-free products than any other store in Manhattan. And ask for the team leader. My name is Chris. Ask for Stephanie. And if they like your product, we'll all email the regional office and they might onboard you to our local supplier program. This was on a Thursday and I was being onboarded by Monday.
That's amazing.
And I was like, that was my whole sort of initial go to market. I was like, I'd skipped all the prototyping.
Dude, that's incredible.
There's all sorts of sort of certifications and licenses you have to have in order to sell food that I didn't have. And so I quickly got certified and got in with Kitchen and Queens.
So what kind of cookie was it?
It was a brown butter chocolate chip cookie, and it's the best cookie you ever tasted.
Now, when you started,
fresh baked in my apartment, like 3 minutes before I walked into the
Now, when you started finding like your recipe, did you kind of go off of Google, or was it like recipes that you've seen before, or how?
I did anything and everything. You know what? My computer is about to die, so let me just plug in. Sorry, guys.
Go ahead. All good.
I just saw that.
Time for water break.
It's better to find out now than halfway through.
Right. Where did our guest go? That's happened to us a couple times.
Okay.
We get a nice view.
It's a panoramic.
Right.
I don't want
So,
you to
yeah,
see I don't want you to see my mess. That's good.
No,
That's
you're
there.
no, I mean this entire space is a whole aesthetic vibe right now. All I have is mini blinds behind me. So
in all fairness, there's a few episodes where I've been renovating my house, and all you see is just junk in the background. So you're good.
So that kind of
Yeah.
as an aside, right? Like the entire reason this podcast was created was to break down the barrier between professionals and those who feel like they can't be in the same conversation, right? And so this to me is like part of our aesthetic, right? Like we're normal people. We like to eat just like everybody else. We're going to have this conversation. There's no gatekeeping. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it very much fits the vibe of the entire podcast.
So yeah, going back, like where did you start, like as far as recipe development? Like,
Yeah, I had no baking background. I've always baked and enjoy like baking has always been my happy place. Or it's like, during Christmas, I would just hide and bake pies, from my family. I'm an introvert and everyone in my family are extroverts. So I would just hide in the kitchen and I would just be like, I'm making pies, I'm making cookies, I'm making, bread, whatever.
Like somebody has to man its station. Leave me alone.
No baking. Leave me alone.
It's just baking.
It's something that I do when I'm bored, when I'm on vacation. Like it's how I decompress. It's how I sort of process. So it's something I've always been interested in, but I don't have any formal training in it. And so I am a very good researcher, though. That is what sort of I went to school for. And being in investments, you're researching every day because the markets change every day. And so I tried everything. I went to blogs. I tried, all recipes or whatever, like anything. I tried it. Right. I even found what's that bakery in Manhattan that everyone is obsessed with the big
Sprinkles? No.
It's like a
Magnolia. Not that one.
Another one. They're like these huge cookies. Anyway, and they're like really gooey. So I just tried every type of cookie that I could think of, and every single time it was a disaster. Like just horrid, like just terrible.
And every recipe said the world's greatest this cookie, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure if I wasn't baking gluten-free, it would have worked out better, but it was disastrous. So then I started honing in on some people who baked gluten-free and found some interesting things in blogs of people who are like, I have celiac disease. I live with this every day. Or all of my children have celiac disease. It's too expensive. And started honing in on sort of like the adjustments they were making. But I like math and baking is chemistry. So I started creating Excel spreadsheets and looking at every single ratio, because that's what baking is very technical. So I started to really key into the ratios and understanding what baking is and how moisture levels affect the outcome and all the different ways you can combine baking soda, baking powder, xanthan gum, and all these small adjustments. Even like the difference between a great cookie and a good cookie is 1% salt. The difference of 1% of salt in your recipe for baking makes it from a good cookie to a great cookie.
Yeah, because sweets need salt.
They're not salty enough.
Yeah, brownies too, cake
they
too.
Look good, but they don't taste good. It's the salt. You need more salt. And all of these really small micro adjustments. I'm a math and statistics nerd, so I started really understanding that, and I had spreadsheets upon spreadsheets upon spreadsheets. I also realized that a lot of the recipes out there are exactly the same, just different ratio. They're the same ratios, but one is 2 cups versus 3 cups.
Right.
And so these creators who are putting recipes out there are actually just copying the same recipe. And so I eventually found something that started to work, and I started making my own adjustments and introducing my own ingredients, and found things like, when you're baking gluten-free, you really need to introduce more moisture. And so I added maple syrup initially to my recipes, and that made a tremendous difference. And something like a teaspoon of maple syrup in your cookie recipe can really change the outcome.
And also just something as simple as just weighing your ingredients is
100%.
huge.
Yeah, in the beginning I was using tablespoons and cups, and now I will not bake without
no 2 spoons or cups are created the same. It's such a farce.
And yes, and even it's totally wrong. And even things like now that I'm baking commercially and we're in a temperature control facility, even things like barometric pressure, because there's,
and humidity,
water, a storm coming through will change the outcome of our product. When you're making something over and over and over again and you want it to be identical, I'm like, oh man, it's gonna be humid today.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
So baking winter is completely different from baking in summer, and those types of things are chemistry and science and math, and I sort of geek out on that.
I always go back to it's so insane how the pioneers, the people who settled settled out into this country were able to do things like bake bread year round with not one bit of scientific knowledge for the humidity and the rain and the temperature changes and the altitude. And they were doing it like in a Dutch oven with coals. Like it was just mind blowing.
Probably bacteria they brought from their home country that probably had to adapt to.
It is absolutely insane. So you think about that, and you have that built-in kind of like security network of gluten, right? That it's a strengthener. It makes things chewy. It gives them lift and everything else. And then you take that all out, right, of the equation, and you go like, I have to make this set of variables work with potato starch.
Yep.
Like that's crazy.
I mean, it's great talking to chefs so you understand. When people ask me, I was like, you have to think about wheat as a technology, not an ingredient. It's not something you can just replace. Wheat is literally
it's like scaffolding.
How we harvest it and how easy it is to harvest and how frequently you can harvest it to how it performs in the recipe. It adds the color, it adds the strength, it adds the flavor. You can knead it more and make it stronger. You can be really gentle with it and have it be delicate. I mean, it's this unbelievable technology in baking. From a sourdough to a cake, these are completely different textures and flavors and tastes, and it's the same ingredient. And when you remove that, you've removed the foundation. It's like trying to build a house on quicksand.
It's
and so you
insane.
have to start from scratch with the recipe and think about every single ingredient in gluten-free baking matters. And my co-packer is a food scientist, a certified food scientist, Columbia MBA, and he makes handmade, like hand-decorated cookies by the million. So he's incredible at what he does, and he will not bake gluten-free unless I'm there. He's like, no. It's how hard it is. And he was like, Carolyn, no one knows it better than you do. And he's like, I don't want to you come be here with us.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, that's how hard it is. Because he's like, when we make a mistake with flour or something's not going right, he's like, I can make small adjustments and save it. Whereas with gluten-free, there's no saving it. It's done.
So how long have you been in business with your cookie business? Yeah.
So Mighty-licious.
Yeah.
I apologize. Yeah.
I incorporated in 2017. We hit the shelves of Whole Foods January of 2018. So it was about 6 months between incorporation and when I hit the shelves. I started in like 3 Whole Foods, right? I was just making everything by hand in Queens and then delivering them myself Sunday afternoon to these 3 Whole Foods. We grew to the 10 stores and then the entire Northeast region, the entire North Atlantic region, which is when we went over to my commercial facility in New Jersey, and we've been just growing ever since. So it was about a year of me baking every single cookie by hand and then going over to a larger facility, and finding the facility was a really huge challenge.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know much about the cottage food rules in New York. I know quite a bit about them in Texas, but did you only produce like prototypes in your studio apartment, or like what did you have to do to make them legal?
Yeah, so you can in New York, you can sell at like farmers markets. You have to get your food Haeler certificate up to like $250K. Actually, you can manufacture at home and sell in farmers markets. I obviously can't manufacture that many cookies in a 24-inch oven, even if I wanted to.
You're not trying hard enough, Carolyn.
But I think I'm not an expert on the cottage, but I think to sell to a retailer, you do have to have some sort of licensed commercial facility. I was able to. In New York, there's a whole bunch of commercial kitchens that a lot of caterers use, a lot of smaller restaurants will use.
Yeah.
These aren't large enough. So I was able to rent space by the day or even the hour in Queens. And I would just bake every weekend there. And those were all, it's all monitored and cleaned and sanitized.
Sure.
And then it became what people I think don't realize, which I didn't realize certainly, is that it's not the baking of the cookies that's hard, it's the packaging.
Really?
Yeah. So even like making the cookies is even when it was me and I had it like usually 3 or 4 people that I paid by the hour to come help me. Mixing the cookies takes 20 minutes, doesn't matter because I have huge, big mixers. So I can mix takes about the same amount of time to make, 50 pounds of dough as it does, a few ounces of dough at home. Scooping it obviously takes longer, but packaging it, because you're opening it, you're closing, you're putting it in it, that is where all the labor is. And that's what's so time consuming. And it also destroys your hands. It just physically painful. And it's something I think a lot of people imagine that their food is all automated. And if you are Oreo, it is.
Sure.
But not
it wasn't though when they started, they figured that out over a long period of time.
Majority
right?
of food is being mixed in huge, like now we have much bigger mixers than I was even using, where I'm mixing 600 pounds of dough, which looks like a hot tub. It's like a mixer is the size of a hot tub that could fit 6 adults.
Yeah.
We're making hundreds of thousands of pounds of dough, and we're using forklifts to pour the flour in and things like that.
Oh, I love it.
And still, it only takes about 15 minutes to mix the dough.
I love it so much.
Does not make a difference.
Wow.
Then we have depositors that deposit the dough, and that can be done in about 30 minutes. We could get 600 pounds of dough deposited about 30 to 45 minutes. Then it bakes for 12, just the same way that it would bake in your oven. But then packaging takes the rest of the whole day.
Is that like a walk-in oven where you roll racks in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
So this is where the kid in me kind of comes out. So like, do you have like a base, like with your dough? Is it like a base for like every single one that you make, or do you have like
every single one is different?
Okay, cool. Wow.
I think it's probably because like the different flavors change the chemistry of the.
I mean, every single one is different. I mean, I do have sort of a concept, like a base, recipe that I start with when I'm creating a new recipe or a new flavor. I have like, I'm like, I know this work, like my chocolate chip recipe works. I know that, and you can add any inclusion into it and it's going to work. But then when I do oatmeal coconut, that changed things a lot because coconut has moisture in it and like things.
And oats are heavy.
Yep, oats are heavy.
Yeah.
They've really absorbed. They're gelatinous. They've really absorbed a lot of moisture. We have a double chocolate cookie. Once you introduce cocoa powder is like basically cement powder. It absorbs so much moisture, so that cookie has a lot higher moisture ratio than a traditional cookie. Then I have a peanut butter cookie that only has 5 ingredients. It has no wheat, no grain at all.
That's the salted peanut butter, right?
Yes, if you like peanut butter. This cookie. It's just peanut butter.
I love peanut butter.
It's amazing.
I love it.
So every single recipe is different and unique, and it takes days, if not weeks. I always feel like I'm constantly perfecting them because of barometric changes. I'll be at the factory. I'll be like, this needs more salt. This needs a little more carbs.
Carolyn, did somebody call the cops because your cookies are too delicious?
Not yet. But I do get accused of using gluten. I'm like, no, I can't even be around gluten. That's how sensitive I am.
I didn't even.
I'm just in Manhattan where,
Oh, sure. I mean, there's all the sirens. Like, I think when I was a kid, I got that kind of base peanut butter cookie recipe out of the Walt Disney cookbook. It was like a cup of peanut butter, a cup of sugar, and an egg, and you just pressed it into balls and like pressed it down with a fork. And I didn't know what gluten was. I was 7, you know what I mean? But I was like, these are really easy and they don't make a mess. And they're still my favorite peanut butter cookie recipe. You know what I mean?
No, it's amazing. Ours is a little more complicated than that, but
sure.
Sure. It is. I was like, you don't need, like, if you have really great ingredients and you have a really great recipe, it doesn't need to be complicated.
Absolutely. Well, I think some of the best foods are simple. I was going to say that I wouldn't call myself a gluten-free baker by any means. And I don't think that I'm great at baking anyway. I don't have the patience for the tedium. But if you ask me to cater a wedding of 500 and have steaks on the table all at the same time, like, yes, I can do that. But during COVID, when the flour was scarce because everybody was making a starter and everything, I just would buy cake flour. And then when there wasn't any cake flour left, I decided I was furloughed from my job and I decided that I wanted to bake stuff. And so I started grinding up oats. And so I found equivalents that I still use today because they're high fiber and there's no gluten. I don't have any medical reason to stay away from gluten, but I like the way I feel when I eat oats. They're good for you, right? And so I make a really good oat pancake, an oat muffin, and oat waffles. And that kind of serves my needs here. Now, I don't know that I would serve those in a restaurant, but it accomplishes whatever I want to eat, at home. So, but yeah, oats definitely changed the game. But oatmeal coconut, I was looking at the website today. I was like, oh my God, that's just two of my favorite things in a cookie.
That
is
is
oatmeal
my
coconut.
number one bestseller, which is very
Wow.
strange because in America, Oreo is number one. I like but chocolate chip, because of all the private labels, chocolate chip is always the number one bestseller. And my brown
Sure.
butter chocolate chip, which was the first cookie I made, used to be my number one. But that recipe is 100-year-old recipe from my wife's side of the family that Whole Foods had actually said to me. I was in there talking to them about my cookies, just checking
I
in on
love it.
things. I'm like, Carolyn, your gluten-free cookies are great, but vegan is really growing. Can you make me a vegan gluten-free cookie? And I was like, right. You want me to bake without flour, eggs, or butter? That is baking.
Like made all the things that make it taste good. You took it out.
That is part of baking. There's no other. That's how you bake. But I was like, I'm always up when Whole Foods asks, you do it. I'm always up for a challenge. And I saw this recipe and I was like, I really think I can. This is the one because it had the oats and it had coconut, which is really sort of soft and gelatinous. And I was like, I think this will have the structure that I need. And it is my best selling cookie. And it's the base recipe that I use to make all of I now have 4 vegan gluten-free cookies.
Yeah.
And it's the base that I use to develop all of those. Once I created that cookie, I created my vegan chocolate chip cookie, which my wife actually prefers. She thinks that's like the best of my chocolate chip cookies.
Nice.
But she loves it. And then those were so successful that I converted my double Dutch and my oatmeal raisin to be vegan. Because I was like, I think I can make them as good, if not better, vegan. And they are.
Do you ever think this is going to sound like a crazy off the wall question, but I'm always eating the raw cookie dough. Do you ever think about how easy it would be to take what's already vegan and just make it into frozen cookie dough bites for people to snack on since it's not dangerous?
I'm trying to. Please send me a customer. So I was actually at the food show. I was in 2 food shows earlier this month. And we love to get into Sprouts. Our cookies need to be in Sprouts. It's such a perfect retailer for us. We've been trying for a long time. And it's hard and it's hard to get in anywhere. But we haven't been able to crack Sprouts. But a Sprouts buyer came to my table and she tried my peanut butter cookie and she was like, wow, that's amazing. And I was like, what do you do? She was like, oh, I'm in the frozen section. I'm not your buyer. I was like, what do you need? What do you want?
These can be frozen.
I can make you anything. I can make anything you want that can be frozen. Do you want a frozen ice cream cookie sandwich? She was like, yeah. Can you make a mini one? I was like, yeah. I was like, how about dough? We already make the dough. And she was like, no, it's hard. I was like, you don't understand that I used to sell my cookies slack out. I know the entire distribution process. I can get it to California in 3 days flat frozen. I'm already making the dough and my co-packers are into private label. I'm ready. Tell me what you need. And then I told her, I was like, if I send you the dough, my brown butter chocolate chip dough frozen, and then you bake it, because it's so much better, as you know, when we mix and then we bake, but the longer the dough sits, the more flavor and the more intensity.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, I promise this cookie will make you cry. She was like, all right, send it to me. I'll tell you if it makes me cry.
Nice.
So we would love to sell our frozen dough. We would love to sell it to hospitals, to hotel chains, to hospitality. We have it. We just there's this interesting in getting into like chicken and egg phenomenon. In order to get into the distributor, you need to have a customer. In order to get the customer, you need to be in the distributor. So you're constantly like looking for someone to be the first one to like,
absolutely.
Take the risk on you.
Absolutely. I'm just like a certified fat kid at heart. And the first place my brain goes whenever I hear somebody's dough is vegan, I was like, I can eat it. I can eat it out of the bowl. You should freeze it into pellets. You can dip it in chocolate. Like that's where my brain goes.
You could actually, just so you know this, I know that I don't want to get anyone sick, but it's very unlikely you're going to get salmonella from eggs in America.
Yes, ma'am. It has not stopped me in my whole life, but I know there are people who can.
Unlikely.
Well, I was thinking more like it.
I'm not gonna lie. It looks like a party, like on your website. Like I just want to like start ordering all the cookies. You know what I'm saying? Like this website is just so well put together, and I love the fact that you talk about like your pure, clean ingredients, simply delicious. Like those are all words that catch my attention as a customer. And again, I just want to order one of everything like right now. So
I want everyone to know, like I created all of these cookies and the recipes have not changed except for that we added some rice syrup and some grape juice for the shelf life.
For shelf life,
I made every one of these cookies in my studio apartment in a 24-inch oven, right? And so everything that I was sourcing, I was either sourcing from like the internet and Vitacost or from Whole Foods or from, local grocery stores. There's nothing that in my cookies that like you couldn't make at home yourself.
I love that.
And a really great tasting product doesn't need a whole lot of ingredients.
But you don't have to make them at home. That's why you should buy them from Carolyn and My Delicious.
It
That's
is,
true.
Right.
baking at home is very hard. It's very tedious. And it's very expensive. The gluten-free
It can
ingredients
be.
on their own is very expensive. By the time you purchase butter and chocolate and gluten-free flour, you're already in the whole $30.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, obviously you like to bake a lot in your prior to celiac life, right? And I was going to ask you what you thought the biggest barrier was. Is it the cost of the gluten-free ingredients, or is it the fact there's no delicious alternatives for a lot of gluten baked goods? You know what I mean? Like, just what you thought the biggest challenge was for people who are trying to be gluten-free,
Yeah, I think it's accessibility. We are in a convenience really matters to us. We don't like a lot of people. I didn't even have a lunch break most of my career. So sort of, and then we're all very busy. I mean, moms and dads are working. That's sort of the norm these days. Kids have to be on the bus. My daughter's 3 years old and she has to be at school by 8 a.m. So people don't have time to sort of sit down at the table and have breakfast. Their lunch is no longer a part of our culture. Dinner is when everyone is getting home. And I love to cook and I love to bake. And even those things that I love to do, there's often you're just fighting for time. So convenience is really important. That was what really hit me as someone, as even a single person working with a lot more autonomy or a lot more time than I have now, is that I have to think ahead all the time. Like even when I travel now, I don't no longer stay at hotels because I know it's going to be very hard for me to eat at a hotel.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat a terrible Caesar chicken salad and I'm going to have to pull the croutons off.
Yeah. You're going to ask for it without, and they're going to be like, no problem. And then it's going to be wrong anyway. And then you're going to possibly get sick because there was crumbs in your salad, that's not worth your time. Right. Or money.
And when I go to these food shows, even though I'm surrounded by food, I always boil eggs. I always bring something, put a banana in my bag. I always have to think if there isn't anything I can eat, or if I can't get to it, what's in my bag that I can pull out that I can eat? And if you're gluten-free, that is so much harder.
Well, good for you for providing that, piece of accessibility for folks who are in the same boat, or even those who are just choosing not to eat gluten for whatever reason. Right. But I think that's, it's really, really awesome, what you're providing, that service that you're providing.
And actually along those lines, so let me plug my product a little bit. In addition to
Yes, please.
In addition to having 7 flavors of cookies, all of them are gluten-free and kosher certified. And then we have 4 that are vegan and non-GMO. We just launched this year 3 different bakery blends. So we have our gluten-free flour blend, our vegan gluten-free flour blend, and then our vegan gluten-free brownie mix.
Oh, and amazing.
I launched these because the hardest part of baking gluten-free is the flour. And what I learned and why my cookies taste so good. So my cookies don't have any ancient grains in them aside from oats. So our vegan cookies have a little bit of oat flour in them for stability, but the rest is just rice flour based. And I love ancient grains with chicken. I love quinoa and chicken, amaranth. All these ancient grains are really good for you. They have a lot of fiber. They have a lot of vitamins and minerals. They do not taste good in baked products because they often have very bitter aftertaste, which is fine with chicken and lemon.
If you put enough blueberries in a cooked quinoa base, you can get a decent muffin. It's not good the next day. It's good when it comes out of the oven, and it's not a good cookie at all.
Yeah,
right?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It also is much better when it's fresh and warm than 9 months from now.
Yep.
And so when you eat gluten-free, your palate becomes very limited in what the flavor profiles. And so you also become sensitized to these flavors. And when you think about it, pure cane sugar, wheat flour, rice flour, all of these things are very neutral because even though I love agave and I love coconut palm sugar, it's my favorite sugar to bake with, these are flavors that build on your palate. And so even if you enjoy them the first bite, the second bite, the third bite, by the time you finished a drink, I was just drinking some iced tea that agave in it, it just tasted like syrup because it actually interacts with your taste buds, which is why we use wheat flour and pure cane sugar. They don't have that sort of cloying, building property to them. And so I wanted to make cookies that tasted clean and were simple, clean, and pure, but tasted simple, clean, and pure. So you're not getting any aftertaste. You're not getting any gritty texture. You're not getting any chalky texture, and you're not getting any sort of flavors building on your palate.
Yeah,
Also
absolutely.
good for sales. People eat more of them. If you don't remember the flavor, you actually can eat more of them. That's the secret behind Coca-Cola is that you forget it immediately.
Yeah.
So you can eat more of them, you enjoy it more, you look forward to it more. And even though I love those ingredients, I love agave and coconut palm sugar. It in a baked good, it tastes better with pure cane sugar. That allows me to create a cookie that you can't tell is gluten-free. And the way we get rid of the grittiness, which is often something that is also associated with gluten-free, is you feel like a grittiness to it, is we actually worked directly, found that I could not source rice flour on the market that was milled for baking. It's all milled for cooking.
Yeah.
It's milled for thickening sauces. It's milled for making tempura. It's not milled for baking. If you actually look at it, if you just buy rice flour, like you go into the grocery store and you get a bag, it looks like sand, whereas it should look like cornstarch, right?
Yeah.
And so we work directly with mills in California, not only to source our rice, but to mill it to a spec so that you can bake with it. And our rice flour is soft and pillowy, and it looks like cornstarch.
I love it.
And so when you bake with it, you don't have to add anything because it absorbs and it homogenizes with the wet ingredients. But then also when it bakes down, there's no grittiness to it.
Right on. I love it.
And so that is the secret. So that was like why it took so long for me to like develop my recipes. It wasn't that physical recipe necessarily, it's that the ingredients really aren't conducive to baking. So we are launching our flour blends because that is the biggest hurdle people have. Is sourcing high quality flour that isn't super expensive. The only flour on the market that you can bake with is Cup for Cup, and it's $16.99.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is extremely expensive.
But it's insane. And it kind of cuts into the entire reason that some people like to make at home, which is like, it costs me less. Well, not really.
Not necessarily.
Now it's a barrier to entry, and I don't have access to these products.
And if you are a family that is sort of more concerned about paycheck to paycheck, it is cost prohibitive, and it's not something that you can get around.
Yeah.
So I launched the flour blend, and I created the vegan brownie recipe because 3 SKUs is better than 2 on the shelf. It's my best selling product. These vegan brownies, like I just took them to this food show for the first time because we just launched the product and it's just hitting my distribution centers this month. And this was the star of the show. I had people coming back nearly in tears. Like, that's the best.
I love the fact that you also have like the recipe on the back, like even with your flours, like the pancakes and all that stuff. Like I wouldn't have thought about making pancakes with it. I would have been like, okay, I got to make like cookies or something cool.
Yeah. Well, I can't give you my cookie recipe, and I didn't want to have to make up one that was subpar. So,
Sure.
What do people need? Pancakes. If you're gluten-free, the thing that you need in your life.
I need some of this gluten-free brownie. Like I'm going to buy some as soon as we log off. I need some of this in my life.
Hopefully Vicky sent it to
you. Well, she can't send us the farm. Something. Well, I was going to ask, just for our listeners, in case they don't know what makes an item clean, or how do you define that for your brand? Could you explain what you consider clean ingredients?
Yeah, so that is tough because like, I have to think like they're just like, we just use grade A butter, right? There's no additives, there's no preservatives, there's nothing in it. It's just we buy eggs. The eggs are cage free. Got it. That's how we.
So like,
it literally is like, what is it? Is it an egg?
Yeah. Like, so no, I'm not trying to be coy, right? It's just there are a lot of people out there that are home cooks that it's not even really like kind of in their atmosphere to know like what the different terms mean. And so I just want to kind of break it down for people.
Yeah, I don't know the clinical term, but we don't use anything with additives, preservatives, colors, fillers, anything. Like all of our ingredients, like my rice flour is just rice. So
essentially it's like real, nothing artificial and like nothing added on. It's not supposed to be there.
Nothing artificial, nothing, no fillers, no preservatives. They're just whole ingredients like the egg is an egg. And
I gotcha. Yeah. No, you'd be surprised. I mean, like we get all sorts of questions as chefs. They're like, "What is this?" or "What does it mean this?" or like, "It's organic?" or
things that you think should be simple and clean. You turn it has 40, 50 ingredients. You're like, "What?"
And it typically isn't because there's a money trail attached to it. So yeah.
Oreo, like I was laughing at the Expo West, which is the big sort of natural food show in California every year, and it's like enormous. And Oreo was there, and they had labeled Oreos as vegan, plant-based, and I was like, True. There's no butter in them because it's palm oil based, but it's
Dirty vegan.
against the spirit of vegan. Because if you read the ingredient list, you cannot pronounce half of the ingredients. And I love Oreos, and I eat them all the time.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's nice when it's not like a 10-syllable ingredient, when you can actually pronounce them all.
Yeah.
So like there are some places. Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead. Well, there are some places in my life where I do very much value a transparency and labeling. And then there are other things like this Diet Coke, I just chugged like my life depended on it, where I'm less discerning. So
that's true.
So yeah.
Yeah,
But
even our even our preservatives, which is not a preservative, the way we extend our shelf life is with a humectant, which is grape juice and rice syrup. So only 2 ingredients. So that's what I consider pure, simple, clean. And you'd be surprised when you do read the ingredients of something that, like tomato sauce. What could be in tomato sauce?
100%.
Yeah, and then you read the ingredients, you're like, what? Maltodextrin.
I think there's some things that make sense, right? Like if you look at why they put cornstarch in a paprika or whatever, whereas it's like an anti-caking, but not chemically, right? And then there's other things where you go like, why is this in here? Why in the world would this need to be in here?
Or what is that?
Or what is it? Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah. What is this?
Maltodextrin diacetylamide.
Sugar.
Yeah.
It's sugar.
Yeah.
So yeah. Well, have you found, this is just on a personal note, it's not even cookie related. Have you found a Coke alternative that you enjoy? Anything that you could, or I think Zevia makes them without dye, maybe.
No, I haven't. No, I haven't even thought about it. I love Diet Coke. I haven't had it in a long time.
I think there's some clear alternatives out there. I don't know, Hanson's or Zevia make like a clear colas that are not dyed. So maybe
I could try it. I have a friend who works at Pepsi, and I like every once in a while, I'm like,
Crystal Pepsi.
Like, no, it's not.
It's so good though. Yes, well,
it's funny. Like I don't miss these things on a daily basis, but when food is taken away from you, and it's not like a choice you made. It's just something that's taken from you. You realize how ceremonial food is, and how important it is to even like everyday ceremony. Well, like I used to have a Diet Coke every day at 3. I don't have to have a Diet Coke every day at 3, but I enjoy the crispness, the coldness of it, enjoy the ceremony of going down to get it. All these
absolutely. Well, I mean, just the agency of being able to choose what you want to eat is an enormous privilege, right? Like it's very much a part of our lives, and yeah. And I'm sure you mourned that a bit.
She's 3 and she's eating new foods, and she'll go downstairs and get a donut with my wife, and then she'll want me to share with her, and I have to tell her no because I can't eat it. Like I have to tell her just these little things that like just celebrating, like sharing a donut with my daughter is now off limits.
Yeah. What do you do for gluten-free donuts? Do you make some?
I make them myself. Yeah.
Ooh, fun.
The ones that I will buy that I have a 7-month-old. So when I was pregnant, I ate a lot of Katz's donuts. They're in the frozen section. Those are pretty good. You put them in the microwave for about 30 seconds.
Nice.
But yeah, otherwise, if I want like a fresh donut, it's something I make myself.
Amazing. I love it. Well, Carolyn, can you tell us a little bit about the stores where your product is available?
Yeah, we are. So you can buy, the best way to buy a product, though I probably shouldn't say this, is from mydelicious.com. And that's because these are cut. We bake every Monday. And so you're not waiting for the distribution pipeline.
Got it.
They haven't been sitting in a warehouse for 3 months. You're getting fresh baked cookies, and then we freeze them, and then we send them to you. So if you want the best possible experience with My Delicious, order them online, mydelicious.com. If you order 3 bags or more, shipping is free, and we ship to all 50 states. Awesome. We are in retailers all around the country. So if you're not into ordering things online, we are in Walmarts and then in the New England area, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. We are in H-E-B, Dallas. We're in a whole bunch of independents. We're in Giant, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut.
I apologize. Did you say where in Dallas?
We're in H-E-B in Dallas.
I work for H-E-B, but I'm 5 hours away. That's why I'm kind of excited now. Because I'm like, how can we get you into H-E-B? But now we got to get you into West Texas.
Yeah. So we're in H-E-B in Dallas. Where also there's a relatively large independent out there. I forget. I'm in a lot of independents. My cookies do really well in sort of the natural specialty independents. So I'm like 1,300 independents nationwide. I'm in Chicago. I think I'm in Pete's Fresh in Chicago. And there's some other ones. I'm an East Coast person, so I don't know all the ones out there. Our flowers are launching this month in Kroger. So we're going to be in Ralph's. We're going to be in Kroger. We're going to be in 13 different banners, including QVC. Like there's so many Kroger banners.
Amazing.
We're in 13 Kroger banners. So they're taking our gluten-free flour and our brownie mix.
Oh, I'm excited.
Yes. So East Coast, Central US, and West Coast for Kroger banners.
I love it. Yeah. That is so, so exciting. I can't wait to get my hands on some of this stuff. So like I said, as soon as we receive your product, we will taste it. We will post that to YouTube so that everybody can see and live vicariously through us. And then we will just hype and try to get as many people. Yes, I will. Oh, I am so excited about it.
Make them exactly how the recipe. So if you add more, so we make them vegan and use coconut yogurt as the egg replacement. You could add more coconut yogurt for a cakey brownie, but don't.
I like a fudgy brownie.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Listening, like, where can we follow you? Because
so we're on Instagram and Facebook. It's just Mightylicious on Instagram. Yes, please follow us. We do giveaways almost every single week. We do partner giveaways with brands. You can sign up for our mailing list on our website, and every month we give out coupons or promo codes, especially around the holidays. So there's always promo codes for Valentine's Day, for Pride Month, for Mother's Day.
Nice.
So if you do want to order from the website, that's a great way to get a discount and/or free shipping or both.
Well, I'm excited. Well, as everybody, as soon as we get done with this, I'm going to go follow you right now. And so will the podcast. As everybody who listens, if you've been listening since the beginning or you just joined, either way, we really appreciate you out there who are listening and watching. As everybody knows, all of Carolyn's information and the directions to the Mightylicious website and those socials will be listed at thefoodforthoughtcast.com under Carolyn's guest page. Okay. Well, Carolyn, it was a pleasure to have you on today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. This was so much fun.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.